Welcome again to our program, Seasoned Citizens. Today, as you see by the title, we're going to talk about everything coming up roses. And we have as our guest a gentleman who obviously is well versed in this subject. We have with us Larry Buster. Welcome, Larry. Larry and Barbara, his wife, have been working with the roses for a number of years, which Larry will explain. Their home is at 219 Dillaway in Muscatine. Over the years, they have been winners of many local, state, national, and international shows and awards offered in roses. Larry, I think our conversation should lead in with you're starting out just as many of us, just having a rose in the backyard, a bush. And then would you care to go on and explain how you got further enveloped in this rose profession?
Okay. Back about, I think it was about 1963, Dr. McPike, the late Dr. McPike, got us started in roses. He was my dentist, and he always had roses out front, and we'd get it talking about them. And he insisted I come with him to a meeting, and so I said, fine, I'll just do that. So I went to a meeting, and that's the seed got planted. And at that time, we only had 7 roses in our yard, and it was just very exciting just from the moment go. And he had us, he just liked leading us down the path. He told us what to do, what not to do, you know. And it was very nice of him to do that. And now in return, I'm trying to tell others how to do this about roses.
Well, you have an excellent reputation. I can vouch for that from the different people I've visited with. And I have occasion to have had Dr. McPike as my dentist too, and I can recall on occasions his mentioning that. Obviously, I didn't take to it as well as you did. So, well, shall we go into the fact of, let's get into the fact of growing roses. Now, you can start there and just tell us.
All right.
Start out with growing roses.
I'll just do that. Now, because the fall of the year is the very best time of the year to prepare a rose bed. And with this in mind, I'm going to go through a spatial rose bed that I feel that people could maybe plant a dozen or so roses in the spring. Okay, when you find your plot of ground where it's going to get a good 7 or 8 hours of sun, then stake it out and then outline it with some string. Then take a sharp, flat spade and go around the outline of the string and go about 1.5 inches deep. The reason for this is we're going to strip this grass off and save it. Maybe we can lay some sod someplace somewhere else in the yard where the grass is burned out or something like that. But we try to use everything that we can. And after we've stripped the grass off, we roll it up as we take it off. Then we have this rose bed all laid out. And then we take the same spade and spade it 1 spade deep. Now your spade generally is about this long. So spade it about 1 spade deep and just turn the earth over until you get the whole bed dug up that way. Then it looks real cloddy and real rough then. Then we're going to take a rotor tiller. Thank goodness for inventions. Huh? And we take the rotor tiller and really stir this up good. That's fine. Now we're going to add some gypsum. Gypsum will create a little aeration, and plus the fact that adds a little bit of limestone to the soil. And then we're going to add some perlite. We cover this over the head. Make the perlite maybe 1.5 inches thick all over the whole bed. We buy these by a big sack that come about this tall and about this wide. You can buy them from your nursery. And put this all over the whole bed, that and the gypsum, then we roller till the whole thing again. And after we've got this done, and then we may won't want to do any more that day. We want to let it set it. Then come back the next day then, and then we're going to put on about 2 inches of sand. Now this may sound odd, putting sand on a rose bed, but really it creates a little softer soil for the roots to more or less grow throughout the year. So we put 2 inches of coarse sand on there, and then again a little bit more perlite, and we dig this all in, dig it in real good. Then the 2 last things we'll put on this bed, we'll put on 6 inches of chopped leaves, preferably oak leaves. and that's about that much leaves. And then on top of that, take about a 50-pound bag and just scatter ground up alfalfa all over the top of the leaves. Then just dig it in and dig it in real well. And then let this set till spring. And this here has been a proven bed, the way to prepare a bed, because of the fact that you got good soft soil, you got feed in the soil that's laying there all winter from the alfalfa, and the perlite's there and the gypsum's there to more or less aerate the soil. So this works out real well. Now as far as planting a rose, if you're going to buy bare roses, I suggest that you pre-soak the bushes. In other words, take your bushes and soak them in water for maybe 4 hours to overnight. Now this can be done without hurting a rose.
Larry, may I interject just a moment now, just to get a little ahead of the planting? What are we planting? May I ask, because I certainly am a novice at this, very interesting factors like the sand and everything. Where do we buy the roses, or what kind of a rose bush do we start with as a novice? And
okay.
Is there any particular thing we should be planting? You're talking planting time. What are we planting? May I?
Okay, we're talking about hybrid teas here
Okay.
right now. And the bare roses, that's the rose that is not potted. That's what we're referring to.
Okay.
And those you usually purchase ahead of time. You can have your nurseryman save them for you. He'll save you bare roses. I prefer bare roses myself.
Okay.
Or you can also get them through the mail order. There's various
Sure.
ones throughout the United States where you can order bare roses. And of course, at this time I won't mention any of the names, of course, but there are various ones. This can be done. And a bare rose, of course, is one, no leaves, it's all dormant, very dormant. You take this and just submerge it in water for 4 hours or overnight, and you can add a stimulant to the water, which helps it to grow better, force roots a little better, which I usually do. And you hope it isn't too dried out when you get it, especially if you order it through the mail. And most of them are pretty good about it anymore, about the way they package them. So you want to take one more look at your bed, though, while your roses are soaking, and you want to, so you check the texture that you've got ready the fall before. So you want to go and maybe rototill it just lightly and take a look at it. And you may want to add some more perlite to it. This is what I found out I had to do. Add a little more perlite to it, then you're probably ready to plant the rose. Take your bare rose, dig your hole in the ground about 20 inches deep and about 18 inches wide. But this way you've got plenty of room to mix your soil for where you're going to plant your rose. Now we're going to mix the soil. We'll mix 1/3 perlite to your soil plus about a cupful of alfalfa meal, and we'll mix this real well. And then we'll form a cone like in the bottom of the hole to plant the rose. Now here we're going to mix in a little bone meal. Now the bone meal is a good stimulant for a newly planted object when you're planting, either where you're planting tulip bulbs in the fall or where you're planting roses in the spring. So mix this bone meal in real well with the soil, even in with this cone that you formed. Now this is your cone like this, and the roots of the rose will come down over the cone like this. Then we will put the soil in the hole and pack it about 2/3 full, and with the graft or the bud union about 1.5 inches below the surface. Now you read an awful lot in catalogs where it says plant the bud union even with the surface or plant it above the surface. Well, we're up here in North Country. In North Country we get the bud union down below the level of the ground. And down south, southern Missouri, well, it'd be up, even with the surface. And below Missouri, well, you'd find it above the surface. This is the difference of the temperature.
Geographically, they have to be aware of the
Right.
conditions of weather, obviously. Okay.
So Then you want to water it well. And just turn your hose on, let it run real slow, and let this just sort of fill up and soak in as it does. Then once that's all soaked in real good, fill the rest of the hole up. Now we're going to do something a little different. Because normally you would take and hill, H-I-L-L, hill the bush up. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do the way I do it, the way I'm going to suggest you do it. Take and, you know the rose cones that you can buy for the fall of the year to put over roses for the winter. Take one of them after you've filled your hole and it's nice and level. Just set the cone down over top of the bush, put a brick on top of it, and punch a couple holes in the top of the styrofoam and just let it set like a little greenhouse. The reason for this is, instead of mounding it, it will create the bare root rose to have more breaks or more buds to come out than it would have otherwise, and it'll force them quicker. So it's a little trick,
Sure.
but it does work, and I've used it for years.
Fascinating about it, Larry.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to, is this trial and error type of situation?
Well,
Like you said, there are things you have learned over the time.
You know, this was my own doing, my own
Yes.
testing. So,
Done it on your own. Great.
They can do it the old-fashioned way if they wish, you know, mound them up. It's still a very good way to do it. But my way is faster, and I get more breaks, and that means more blooms.
Surely, and that's the name of the idea when
Yeah.
you're doing a rose garden, what have you.
That's right.
Okay. I think next is going down the issues as they come up. Fertilizing, I think, is our possible next area that we would indulge.
Okay, now, here we're going to talk about an established garden. When you talk about fertilizing now. Rose that you grew last year, and you're going to fertilize it like in the spring. Okay, now I have so many roses that we do ours a little different. So I hope you people out there will just bear with me when I tell you this now, because it may be a little strange what I'm going to tell you. We take a regular old garden hoe and we just dig a hole about 3.5 inches deep on each side of the bush. Just dig a hole. Then into this bush we'll put on each side we'll put 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt on each side, and we'll put maybe a half a cup of the rose fertilizer on each side, and then we'll put a cup of alfalfa meal on each side, cover it up, water it well, and carry on. Now that's fast, and when you got over 600 bushes to do, well, you know
Surely, time is the
because in
essence.
the books, you know, they'll say dig a little trench all the way around the bush. Well, we don't have time to do that, and this will work, we have found out. And also, after your bushes have started growing quite well, take these and maybe use liquid fertilizer on them about every 10 days. Every 10 days. When I say liquid fertilizer, there's many on the market, and the formula is right on the box.
Well, again, this is fascinating, and I know this is a bit to digest all at one time. We will invite the public at their convenience to call Larry. Larry is very much receptive to anyone who has a desire to get in this function, so feel free to call Larry at your convenience. And of course, with Larry's business, he may not be available at each and every time, but I'm sure he'll get back to you at the convenient time for both of you and go through these things, because that's a bit quick to digest all these. There's so many things. Alfalfa fascinates me, that has something to do with the growing. But I'm fascinated with it in the first place, Larry. Now we're going to go into a spraying factor. Now you said the fertilization is a second step. The first time you don't need you're doing fertilization as you plant them. Now we're going to go into a fertilization and spraying. Is
Spraying,
this the next step?
I'll explain that.
Okay.
I'll explain that. Okay, now spraying to a gallon of water, we usually use a teaspoon of trifline and a tablespoon of your liquid fertilizer, and then your tablespoon of iron, liquid iron. That's every 7 days. Now religiously do it every 7 days, not 10 days, not 2 weeks. because, you know, when we get up to shave, we shave every morning, so we should spray our roses one on time too, of course. And by doing so, why, we're going to create less, well, less pain later because of the fact you have black spot or mildew or something that you don't want. And I've been experimenting a little bit this summer. I've been trying by upping the liquid fertilizer formula. Fact is, I doubled it, and I got fantastic results. And a friend of mine, he went and experimented a little bit further. He went 6 times the formula for the liquid fertilizer with no adverse effects. Well, I wouldn't suggest that for any of you people out there at all.
No, that's
stick
right.
to the stick to the formula because it's
Tried and true formula.
right, because you won't go wrong.
Let's plug a little bit in here for that lovely bride of yours, Barbara, who obviously is very involved in this too. She isn't with us today, but I believe she has something that's called a Barbara Buster special that has to do with spraying. May I?
Well, it's not really spraying, but it's to do with the bloom.
Okay,
Now,
excuse me.
I will explain that.
All right.
This is what she invented, and it's, as you can see, it's tulle, made into a drawstring net, which will draw right up over the rose, like so. You know.
Okay.
And then you only use this in the fall of the year, because if you're in this part of the country, you have beetles, and they love to chew up your favorite bloom on your bush. So especially you people out there who have roses, and you've had this happen to you, I know you have, and so just take and put one of these, tie it over your bloom. Once it's started to open, just tie it on there, because you can spray right through it, you know, so don't worry about that. And just leave it tied on till you're ready to pick it, and just pick it and leave it on and take it in the house. We use them very, very much, because we exhibit a lot, and we naturally want the petals spotless. It works quite well, and it's, as you can see, they're real light,
Right,
fluffy.
nothing to them actually.
But there's really not much to this, and
Barbara thought this up herself and has actually made some and sold them.
no, we don't sell
You
them.
don't sell, okay.
She actually introduced the idea to the American Rose Society, and it was given to them free, and then they, so just more or less to help promote the rose.
Sure, it's not a manufactured item. I mean, you do it on your
No,
own.
they can make it
technically.
themselves. That's why I said buy some tulle fabric
Surely.
from their favorite fabric shop, and
Great.
they can make it.
I think something too that was of great interest to me, and I'm not an aficionado of gardening, my wife is obviously, but mention was made about the rose becoming something in our way of life. Can you explain what transpired,
Sure.
Larry?
Betcha. Back in 1980, late 85, and during the first 8 or 9 months of 1986, there was quite a bit of lobbying being done by the garden clubs and the rose societies throughout the whole United States, getting the rose to be our national flower emblem. And just all succeeded, of course, and on September 23rd, 1986, it was signed in to be our national flower. And so you see, it's not only nice to grow roses, it's patriotic to grow roses in the United States. It's not only our state flower, it's our national flower. So this is great.
Surely is. I'm sure a number of our viewing audience wasn't aware of that. I certainly wasn't. Now, you stated their state. Had the rose been an Iowa state
Yeah,
rose?
the wild rose.
Or flower?
Yeah, the wild
I didn't
rose
know that.
is Iowa's state flower.
So now the nation has joined Iowa in
Just
in
promoting-
context.
Yeah, and promoting the rose.
Well,
as
I
the-
think that's, again, something worthy of noting, particularly when you are involved in it. Question I have for you now would be pertaining to the growing time. Now, we're in August presently, and we're doing our program at that time. Can you kind of give us a rundown of the actual growing time, the proper time? Is there a proper time, Larry, or a better time?
Okay, now, far as I'm concerned, I believe fall is your most beautiful time to have roses bloom. So we will more or less gear our late bloom. We'll start cutting back our roses in about the middle of July, and we sort of cut a few on this bush, go to another bush, cut a few more. In other words, we stagger them, and then by about the middle to the 20th of August, then we're all cut back. So right now we practically don't have a bloom on the place. But oh, the growth is just coming great, and so we're looking forward to September and October with a great abundance of bloom. 'Cause, if you haven't geared your blooms that way, why, try it. You'll like it because you'll get not only more bloom in the fall, you'll get a prettier bloom because it's more cooler weather, and you will get longer stems. Now, the reason where you get bigger bloom is because it's cooler weather, because it takes a rose longer to develop. That means it may even create another row of petals, where normally it wouldn't have that. This is one of the reasons I feel for that. And another thing I would like to mention, go back to the spring and summer of growing roses. I left this out. When they want to cut their roses back after it's bloomed, don't cut it. Now, this may sound strange. I'm giving them some weird ideas here.
I'm sure.
But don't
strange,
don't cut that bloom off. Just reach up and snap the bloom. The reason for this is it'll pay dividends, because you're going to leave all those leaves on the bush. And then come July, while your roses actually will be about from a foot to 19 inches taller than normally they would have been the year before if you'd kept cutting on them, you know. So don't cut your rose after it's bloomed on the bush. Only cut them to use, of course, you know. But the ones you leave on the bush, don't cut them, just snap it off. But come fall, we'll do it a little different. Now, the roses you're not going to use in September and October, don't cut them at all. Just leave them on the bush, period. It may look a little nasty, but let the petals just fall, and that helps them more or less condition the bush for winter. So, another idea that they might.
Well, that's great. That was some of the things I was going to question, the cutting back of bushes, but you've explained that. Something that you have given me a in-depth explanation of that fascinated me is the dry wrapping of roses. Larry, can you kind of give a little rundown of how we do that? You have a little bit of an idea here to present, so if you will, please.
Okay. Now, this idea, the florists have known about it for years, but really haven't really educated the public to it. So we're about ready to do that. So this here, you see, is this average styrofoam cup. And we take a bloom that's about half open on the bush. And you take this, and I'm going to show you here what we've done. We've taken and took a pencil and poked a hole in the bottom of the styrofoam cup. And then we cut, as you see. Now, we're going to go up like this and encase the bloom into the paper cup. And their stem will go right in the middle, just like so. And then we'll put a little twisty down here to help hold this up. Now, they do this while it's still on the bush. Now, it takes two people. I've never been able to do it with one person. It takes two people. Then take saran wrap, wrap this real well while it's still on the bush. You haven't cut it yet. Then, I don't know how long you want your rose, whether you want it 1 foot long or 2 feet long, whatever. Then go down and get ready to cut. And have the other person get a piece of saran wrap about 3 inches square, 4 inches square, and just as soon as you make your cut, real quick, put it over the end of the stem. And then take this and into the house, just lay it down and wrap it 3 different times completely. Everything with saran wrap. Never sees water. You set it in the refrigerator in a container, leave it set there for 2 weeks, a month, whatever. Now, this is one way for our audience out there to be able to have their roses that they picked in late September, to have them for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and even New Year's. Now, this is really I know it sounds crazy, but it works. I've tried
Fascinating.
it. Yeah.
Is there a temperature to be?
They should probably hit between 33 and 37 degrees in the refrigerator.
Okay, now after we bring them from that temperature, how do we get them to re-establish their
Okay.
full bloom?
Glad you asked that. Okay, then once we take them out of the refrigerator, when you're ready to use it, take it out and have a container of water there that's, I don't know how long the rose would be. Let's say the rose is this long, so we can use a 5-gallon bucket and fill it about 2/3 full of about 100-degree water, warm water, about 100 degrees. Then get another bucket and real cold water. Put some ice cubes in it, in fact, to get it real cold. Then take this rose, unwrap it, and then put it below the water, and then cut it off underneath the water. Underneath the water, be sure. And then set it in your warm water, and you'll see fascinating things happen. Your leaves will look so wrinkled and everything. Then they'll start to come out beautiful, and they'll also all transpire in 10 to 20 minutes. So you have to sometimes watch it, because it can go too far and you can't stop the bloom. It'll go wide open. And it's very fascinating. So you take it, watch it, get it right where you want it, then take it and put it over in the cold water, and then you can eventually set it back in the refrigerator.
Wow, this is fascinating. I think we may all come over to your house Christmas time to see this function. And again, I'd like to remind everyone out there that Larry is available for questioning at any time. I know we've gone rather rapidly, but do feel free to call him and get further information if you desire. He'll certainly be glad to help you. He is a judge, incidentally, and has officiated at many different functions around the Midwest. The suggestion I think you have here, tell us a bit about the American Rose Society and what you can do there in the literature of the magazine.
Okay, the American Rose Society is the largest national organization for any kind of a garden club. And so I would suggest for people to seek out the American Rose Society, which is located in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
And after all, it's our national flower, you know.
Right.
And because they can get a wealth of information from this monthly magazine that comes out, and they got the ifs and ands and do's and don'ts, you know. And it's a very wonderful organization, and I have found out where the most wonderful people where you can meet and converse with them, because they're going to talk about the same things that you're going to talk about. You know.
Great. Well, again, time is running for us, and again, we appreciate you so much coming with us today, Larry, and enlightening us in the flower industry of the roses. And again, Larry always wants to remind everyone to try to take in rose shows and garden walks, because this will help you to understand it a little more and help him in his endeavors being judged. Again, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Heritage Cablevision for allowing us to utilize their studios and filming this, and again to our Commission on Aging for sponsoring this show. We've had a wonderful afternoon with Larry and appreciate your being with us. Good afternoon to you.